Hey, welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. I'm going to talk about guns on this one, something about training, and something about some reality about guns and gunfighting and training and things like that. So obviously, this is just going to be a Patreon video. Uh, Sitting here, it's been snowing, and I think we've reached a high temperature of today of 2 degrees. So it's the perfect day to talk about training inside. Just recently, and I have been a big proponent over the years of dry training and also of point shooting, and I'm going to put those two together in this. And just recently, I've since the ammo shortage and things, I've heard more people on YouTube starting to talk about dry fire training and everything like this. Well, I'm glad others are understanding the importance of it, but this has been something that those of us who carried gun professionally have always done and always known, and I think that more people ought to understand kind of how to do it. Uh, the first thing that I want to say is that um, people can be easily misled by the volume and the noise out there and the people trying to think of something to make a video on and teaching things that although they've learned, they don't know from their own experience. And that is a danger. Um, People who have learned a discipline but never used it in real life um, tend to pass on things that are incomplete, and that's what I'm going to talk about. It's the same with martial arts, which I also have some experience in, and I'm going to make a video on that here sometime, probably pretty soon. And the question is going to be: Are the martial arts, or is martial arts applicable in real life attack situations? And my answer is going to be no, not usually. Only in the rare occasion is it. And I'll go into more detail on that in a future one, but today we're talking about guns. Um, I went through a lot of training when I first trained, as many of you have. Many of you did, as many of the viewers on YouTube have. Um, but then I had the opportunity to go out there and put that training into use, which most people do not. And when you are introduced to reality, you realize that that's where you start learning. I've said before in some past um, videos that training is great. I mean, training always beats no training, and a lot of training maybe it doesn't always beat less training. Depends on the quality of the training and the mindset of the instructors and the students and a lot of things. Too many people just get involved in the endless training, and to where they become, well, the old training scar situation kind of applies here. I think that you can train so much that you come to believe that training is reality, and then that's where you can get yourself in a bind if reality ever comes up and tries to give you a kiss. Um, but a lot of people, they will train within the parameters, and you always will train within the parameters of the people who instruct you. But then, as I've said before, training takes you up to a certain point, and it prepares you to learn by experience. It's experience that is the real teacher. So I want to talk about a few things that I think will be helpful to any of you who are trying to keep your skills up, trying to train during this downtime. With the ammo shortage and all, I've heard a lot of people say, "Well, I can't get out and train and as much as I want to." Gun training, marksmanship, gunmanship it's a perishable skill. Um, Yeah, it is, but not to the extent I think that a lot of people try to make it, and most of those people are ones who own who own shooting ranges or gun schools, because they want to keep people coming back. Um, Now, I will say right now that I am not the shot that I was back when I was shooting a lot of government ammo that I didn't have to pay for, right? Um, but I am still an adequate shot for the needs of reality. And by maybe I'll just slip that in here, that maybe at a given distance, I might used to have been able to put all the rounds in the size of my fist, and maybe now it's going to be this. I tell you what, in a real situation, this is still going to work. And it doesn't take, 1,000 rounds a month or whatever it is that people shoot uh, to keep up their skills. It doesn't take that to keep a reality um, distance, for want of a better term, and the word's not coming to me right now, up to speed. I shoot maybe twice a year now, if that. It's not something that I do as an activity. It's not something that I really have time for. But whenever I go out, I see that I'm doing just fine. Now the important thing is that range time is not necessarily um, contributory to effective reality response, if I can say that. And everybody admits, and people will talk about, dealing on a flat range it's not reality, and any more that kata is reality in the martial arts. You don't learn to fight by doing a dance, and you don't learn to win a gunfight by shooting at paper targets. Um, the reality of a gunfight is much different. I want to throw in a couple of things here. There are a couple of people out there and I don't watch a lot of gun videos because first off, I disagree with a lot of what I see, and other than that, they just don't hold my interest, maybe for whatever reason. But there are a couple of people out there that I would suggest, if you don't already watch, if you want to get a real taste of reality, these guys will give it to you. Well, first off, and this isn't really about gun handling or gun fighting, but Paul Harrell, if you want to understand ballistics, if you want to know the real difference between different calibers and the effectiveness of different rounds, whatever, go to Paul Harrell. He's the one that I would suggest. The guys who will talk about the reality in gunfighting are John McPhee and Pat McNamara. And one of the things that you will notice from both of those, because they both were able to go out and take their training into a real world situation and understand where the training was lacking and where reality became a teacher. And one of the things that I got a big kick out of, and I'm going to get around in just a minute to my suggestions. But one of the things that I got a big kick out of was McNamara said one time he was talking about what I think he called range theatrics, and we'd call them showboats, to where it's well, I won't try to do it, but all the checking and everything like this and holding your gun up. I tell you what, you get in a gunfight, you're not going to be doing that. I guarantee it. Okay, I guarantee you're not going to be doing that. But it looks great on the range, right? Because it makes you look like you know what you're doing, and everybody can see. And if you don't do that, some yahoo in the back of the class is going to be saying, "You forgot to check." Yeah, and that of course makes him feel important, and it makes you feel like I don't know what. but it was so funny. Go find that. Go find Pat McNamara talking about range theatrics, and he is dead on. One thing that I remember McPhee was talking about is trigger discipline. And you know how when you go to learn to shoot nowadays, especially in the old days, it wasn't like this. They give you the basics, and it's okay. And then they started because you were taught by people who had real world experience. Okay, do this, think about that. Now we're going to whatever. I'm not going to get in detail on that. But then you were able to go out and get your own real world experience. Now we have too many people training on flat ranges, learning from people who trained on flat ranges, learn from people who trained on flat ranges. But anyway, he was talking about trigger, and he says, you know how they would say, only put the pad of your forefinger on that trigger, and don't jerk the trigger, and don't pull the trigger, and I know that the thing now is press the trigger, and he said, well, and go find that yourself. But he said something to the impression of, man, he's jerked the trigger, he has sunk that finger in so far, like you're not supposed to, and he's jerked it and he's pulled it and whatever, and he's exactly right. You have to find out what's right for you. We don't all have the same sized hands. Okay, so if for a person with huge hands to try to get to where their pad of their finger is on that trigger is not going to be effective. You might sink that whole thing in. As long as you can do it, you need to find what's right for you. Okay, now, training. How do you train without ammo? One of the first things that I teach people when they're getting new with guns is point shooting dry practice. Now, I've heard everybody will talk about, your sights. Get your sights on target. Acquire, your target with your sights. If you are ever in a gunfight, you are not going to even notice your sights. Not in a defensive situation, for the most part. Now there may be situations. I shouldn't say you are never, because always and never are words that will always catch you up. But rarely are you going to be able to. Now, you'll probably be able to find some YouTube shootings and things where you look like the guy was using his sights. And if you're in an offensive shooting situation, like if you're going in, if you're a tier 1 guy, if you're a SWAT guy, or you're going in to clear a house, and you know that anybody you see in there, with a certain profile, is going to die, that's different. That's an offensive shooting situation, and most of you aren't going to be in that. You're never going to be in that. And so what's going to happen, you're going to be in more of a defensive situation. Now, what happens in that is that it usually comes as a surprise. And we're going to get to why point shooting is important here. It's going to come as a surprise. It could be out in the world. It could be in a parking lot. It could be in a convenience store. It could be in your house. It could be on a dark street with a brick building on your left, a big stone church on your right, a car parked in the middle of the street stopped in front of you, and somebody getting out and shooting at you. And while you're approaching the car, and I will tell you that the last thing you're thinking about is acquiring your sights because it's dark. You can't do it. I know. Oh, get illuminated, sights. Get glow sights. No. Because what's going through your head and what's going through your body and what's going through your mind are more things than you can ever imagine if you haven't been there. Okay. All the things that work on the range do not translate easily into reality. The lighting's not great. There wasn't a bell to start you off. There isn't a range master watching everything. Your footing isn't ideal. You don't know what's going on around you. There may be people walking down the street to your left. There may be people coming up the stairs on you. you're trying to check to see wherever everybody else is in your house. You know where your eyes are going to be? Because they're not going to be on your sights. They're going to be on your target. Okay. Now, I'm sure that there will be a number of people who will get on here and say, well, that's not right and that's not true. And you should always have your eyes on your sights. And if you haven't been in a shooting situation like that, resist the desire to make that comment. Okay. So your eyes are going to be on your target, because you would be amazed at how much somebody shooting at you draws your attention. Right? Okay. When you see those flashes, you're not going, ooh, flash, flash, where's my sights? Okay. Now this is why point shooting, or what they call intuitive shooting, is so important. And one of the first things that I teach people when they first learn to shoot is exactly this. And I tell, and even people who have shot for a long time, once I start taking them through a point shooting regimen, they find out that their shooting improves unbelievably. And they're surprised how well they do. And they're surprised that their point shooting is almost as good as their sight shooting. Okay? And it's every bit as good as it needs to be in a real world situation. So what I would suggest, and you just, just take your handgun, unloaded, right? I shouldn't even have to say that. And sit there on your couch watching the news. But don't do that first. First off, what I want you to do is look at things, and just with your handgun, just raise it up and point at something in the room. Okay, it could be a picture, could be a coffee cup, could be any number of things. Just point it. Okay, don't even look. Don't look at your sights. Just point it. Okay, and then without moving your hand, move your head down to where you are aligning your sights perfectly. Okay, now at first it won't be right on that target. It'll be a little bit up or down or right or left or whatever. And keep doing it. And the more you do it, all of a sudden you're going to find that it's getting closer and closer and closer. And it won't take that long, but guess what? You're going to be right on it. Now do it with two-handed. I know I'm doing it. I know you can't see that. Do it with two hands. Do it with one hand, strong hand, and do it with your weak hand. And that's something that too many people don't train on nowadays. We used to train hard on that stuff. Don't train too much on nowadays. Doing it with their weak hand. You never know what might have happened to your strong hand. You'd better be able to use your weapon with your weak hand. And people don't like to train on that because at first your shots are all over the place, right? And nobody likes, anybody seeing a target that they're on, with holes all around. Well, start. You're going to be lousy, and then you're going to get better and better and better. But back to the dry practice, just do that. Just do that. And do it a lot. When you're sitting down, you have plenty of time to do this. When you're sitting down, and one of the best ways is to watch the news. I won't say which channel to watch. And as a face comes up on there, bam. Okay. Right there. Right there. You're not looking at the sights because you're looking at your threat. Again, because you want to be able to also, you don't want to become, blind to everything else, because if you're, and I know the old, what is it? Was it Jeff Cooper that came up? It might be somebody else. I'm not sure. What was it? Flash sight, something like that. That you immediately get a flash sight picture, and then you go back to seeing the world around you. Well, maybe, easier done on the range than in real life. But you just keep doing this. As a face comes up, bam, there you are. And then you check your sights. Okay. Do that over and over and over again. Okay. And then the next time you go to the range, because I know nobody's blowing out a lot of ammo right now if you don't work for the government. Next time you go to the range, don't use your sights. Take that target out there and start point shooting. And you're going to be amazed at how well you do. Okay. Another thing that I'll just throw in here kind of at the end that I hear a lot of people talking about are trigger reset. Okay. They'll say now, after you, I almost said pull the trigger. After you press that trigger, heck with that. After you pull that trigger, and then, practice learning that trigger, feeling that trigger reset, right? Feel it. Okay. So then you're ready for your next shot. Hey, if somebody is shooting at you, you're never going to feel that trigger reset. Okay? Because they're shooting at you and you're trying to bring this to a conclusion in your favor as quickly as possible. And the more rounds that are coming your way, the more you want to bring it to a conclusion. And all of a sudden, in addition to not thinking about your sights, you are not thinking about your trigger reset. Pull that trigger, let it go, pull it again, let it go, pull it again, let it go, and crank a few out there. And then, of course, I know that the people will say, well, shoot 2, double tap, right? Shoot 2 and then assess. If he's still shooting at you, you don't need to assess, do you? Okay. And for the most part, you can assess as things are developing. Okay. If they're still moving in a way that seems threatening to you, that's your assessment. Keep shooting and keep moving. I'm not going to get into all that right now, but too many people just stand flat-footed because, again, reality tends to freeze your attention, and it can freeze you in your place to where you become a pretty good target for anybody who's looking at you, and you don't want that. If you can be moving, and you ought to be moving, again, not going to get into great detail, but just keep that in mind. So I want to throw this out because there's just too much out there being spread around by people who have not been in the situation, and so much of your developing the skills to be able to deal with reality will come from your understanding of the limitations of training and some of the things that might happen when reality comes knocking on your door, if that makes any sense. Okay. So I would suggest, get away. You don't have to be shooting thousands of rounds a month. Like I say, if I shoot twice a year now, that's probably the most I ever shoot, except when people want to go shooting. Going to be doing it a little bit more now because both of my sons and my daughter's coming up. We're going to be doing a little bit more. And here's something else. I've heard people say also, if you find ammo out there, pay whatever you have to pay. No matter how much it is, buy it. I disagree with that entirely. I think it's stupid to overpay for anything, including ammo. If you don't have the ammo that you need now, I'd simply ask, why not? Okay, you should have it by now. You shouldn't have to be, building up more ammo stores. But if I'll leave that to you. You know how much money you want to spend on ammo. But in conclusion of this, dry practice, point shooting are going to make you a good shooter within the distance of most self-defense situations. Okay, and that's 20 to 30 feet, and in many cases much closer. And in some cases, 6 to 8 feet. Your pistol better be down on your waist, not sticking out there like that. Okay, maybe I'll get into more of that. I don't really get into the gun stuff anymore. It kind of bores me because I just hear so much junk out there and people get so excited about it. And I know that the more excited they get about this stuff, the less they're really thinking about reality. And that's where your head needs to be, is thinking about what really happens when things go down. So anyway, that's my thoughts and that's my recommendations. Do a lot of dry practice. Do a lot of point shooting drills and practice. When you get to the range, point shoot, and then think about real scenarios and how they would develop, not how you wish they would develop, not how things would develop if things were super cool, not how they do in the movies, for crying out loud. And make yourself a better participant up here, mental participant, to the extent that you can. There is no such thing as reality until reality is here. But think as much as you can up here to prepare yourself when that reality does come along. So I'll let it go with that. Remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. And preparing those self-defense skills is one of the most important things we can do. It's not something that we use every day. It's something that they are skills that are used extremely rarely. But when they need to be used effectively. Okay. You all have a good day. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.